973.
More on the Doctor Won't See You Now in just a moment. More of your calls. 9 minutes before 8 is the time. But let's come back to the subject with which we started our conversation, and joined by Conservative MP and Security Minister Damian Hinds. And we have many security matters to discuss. But first off, Minister, how concerned should my listeners be that we seem to have an apparent fantasist as the Business Secretary? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm afraid I don't follow the question.
Well, he was saying that he's having talks with the Treasury, and the Treasury is saying that Mr Kwarteng is making things up about talks with Rishi Sunak. So if he is making things up, it's rather frightening to have him as Business Secretary, isn't it?
Well, I don't think he is making things up. Look, government ministers...
So Rishi Sunak's lying?
Hang on. Government ministers are in contact with each other the whole time. That's how government works. Government departments are in contact with each other the whole time. And clearly this is it's a serious situation with the rising global price of gas. And of course, the business sector, the energy sector, is going to be totally focused on the impact of that on industry, and particularly energy-intensive industries. Equally, the Treasury is going to be very focused on the impacts on the economy. And by the way, we're all also very focused on the impacts on consumers. And that's why things like the energy price cap are so important, and the warm homes discount.
It's not quite my question, because Mr Kwarteng has said, I'm working very closely with Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, to get us through this situation. Yeah. To which the Treasury has responded, this is not the first time the Business Secretary has made things up in an interview. To be clear, to be crystal clear, the Treasury are not involved in any talks. So somebody somewhere is lying. So you think it's Rishi Sunak who's lying, just to clarify?
No. Look, Nick, this is one of those unnamed sources stories that comes out from time to time. I don't know what was that particular conversation, because neither you nor I was in it.
It's pretty embarrassing, isn't it?
Hang on. But I do know that all parts of government work closely together, and of course, it is a serious issue that we face with these global rises in the gas price. And of course it's right that that people should be looking at that and should be talking about it. And Kwasi Kwarteng is in further talks, I know, with industry, and I think we'll be again today on these issues, and that's quite right.
Will there be a bailout, in your view? Should there be a bailout?
No, I think everybody, the key departments, and that means, the two lead departments are obviously Business and Energy and the Treasury. We'll keep on monitoring the situation as they rightly should. But we've just come through a period where the amount of financial support to business has been truly unprecedented. We use that word a lot over the last couple of years, haven't we? Unprecedented. But the scale of financial support to business, it had £100 billion over the pandemic, truly has been truly unprecedented. And now, of course, the very most important thing for business is the strength of our economic recovery after COVID. And actually, that has been a lot better than people were projecting 12 or 18 months ago. That, as I say, that's by far the most important single thing for business and indeed for families across the country.
Let's come back to your brief of security then, Minister. How come Russia was able to steal the formula for the Oxford AstraZeneca jab?
Well, we live in a world, Nick, I'm afraid, where there is state activity seeking to engage in industrial espionage and economic espionage. There are cyber attacks that happen and so on. I won't comment on the specific case that you mentioned, because that wouldn't be right.
Is it true?
In detail, but it would be, correct to say, that we face threats of this type that are different. They're more sophisticated. They're more extensive than they ever have been before. The face of espionage, the face of spying, is very different from what it was when you and I were growing up. And we need to constantly upgrade our capability. These are very serious matters.
So Russia did nick it.
So I can't comment, as I said a moment ago, Nick, I can't comment specifically, but I think it is fair. It's fair for your listeners to assume that constantly there are, foreign states who would like to get their hands on, sensitive information, including sometimes commercial secrets, sometimes scientific intellectual property, constantly trying to get hold of it. And in the cyber space, That is done in a very different way from how things used to happen, and we need to be exceptionally vigilant towards it.
A little out of your brief, but still staying with the security aspect, you might have seen this morning 2,000 police officers have been accused of sexual misconduct, including rape, over the past 4 years. Yeah. Albeit it's a very large body of men and women, I understand that, but that surely is a shocking figure, Minister.
Yes, of course it is a shocking figure, and it's important that there's process to go through in those cases. And an accusation must be followed by looking into it properly. And in some cases, there'll be full proceedings.
Sadly, a week.
Direct answer to your question: is that a shocking figure? Yes, of course.
Yes, sadly a week seems to go by without some set of headlines of troubling nature concerning our police. Do we need a royal commission into policing?
So, look, I want to say two things about that. The first is it is very important to stop and take a moment to pay tribute to the brave men and women who people are policed, who put themselves in danger day after day in defence of the rest of us. And nobody, I think, feels more shocked, more let down by some of the things that we've heard, and in particular the awful, tragic killing of Sarah Everard. Nobody feels more let down than those police officers, and we owe it to them to make sure that we absolutely get to the bottom of these matters. And that's why the Home Secretary is instituting the inquiry. It's a two-part inquiry.
It's a worthless inquiry, surely, Minister, if it's not statutory.
No, it's not. Of course.
Well, I refer you to the Daniel. You recall the Daniel Morgan inquiry, which brought its findings in last year, which was not statutory. And you'll remember that very distinguished Judge O'Lone said that the Met blocked the production of material, blocked it. Now we have. If you allow me one more minute, that did not have statutory powers. The Macpherson inquiry had statutory powers, which you'll know means it can compel anybody to give evidence or produce any document. Yes. There is no point, Minister, having an inquiry into the grotesque affair of Sarah Everard and other issues unless it's statutory, because the Met will knock the ball into the long grass and hope it goes away, as they did with Daniel Morgan, as we heard in June. This has to be statutory, doesn't it?
So I'm not expecting people to block evidence or block participation and block progress. It is important for our whole country. It's very important, actually, for the Metropolitan Police Service in particular. It's very important for our.
Well, why will they? Why would they? They didn't in the case of Mr. Morgan. Why would they, Minister? They didn't with Mr. Morgan. Why will they now?
Get to the bottom of these things, because I think it is very important.
No, we agree on its importance. Sorry, the point is.
No, but I think it's also
important. They've got form, if you like. Let's use. They've got form. They didn't cooperate with Daniel Morgan. The judge said so. I'm not in any danger of being sued here. Just look at Judge O'Lone's words. They won't cooperate here. Your colleagues need to make it statutory, surely.
Nick, I'm fully expecting cooperation from everybody. Metropolitan Police Service, of course, number one, in relation to this inquiry, because it is so important. This has absolutely shocked and rocked women and girls, but actually our whole nation.
Indeed.
What has happened. And it's very important first to get absolutely to the bottom of that particular case, but also then there's these wider questions, and that's where the part two of the inquiry comes in, to look without fear or favour, to go where the evidence takes it, and make sure that for the whole of policing, it's not only necessarily about the Met, but about the whole of policing, to make sure that all the lessons are learned and are drawn, and we can respond accordingly.
Lastly, in your brief as Security Minister, can I take you to the Kent coast? More than 1,100 migrants crossed the Channel in 2 days. France accusing the UK of holding back £54 million in necessary funding. How secure do you think the Channel crossing is at the moment, and what is to be done about increasing numbers of people arriving?
Well, there's no withholding of money. We're working through the administrative processes to arrive at the mechanisms to how that money gets paid. But we work very closely with colleagues in France, the law enforcement and so on the coast there, and that is a really, really important part of the effort, because these wicked people who profit from putting very vulnerable people's lives directly in danger by sticking them on these unsafe craft going across the Channel, they have to be stopped. And what happens in northern France is a very, very important part of that, and I value that work immensely.
All right, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Security Minister Damien Hinds appearing here on LBC, where at 8 o'clock the news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Scotland Yard says it will take no further action following a review of allegations